I struggle so much with being present. I feel like I spend 75% of my waking life thinking about the future. And I also spend a decent amount of my time, probably 20% of my time, thinking about the past. But it's so rare that I'm just like here, now, in it. Why is it so hard, and what am I doing wrong?
Well, there's no switch, it's a practice. So it's about observing the mind, it's about practicing of like, okay, I'm not in this moment. How can I observe what thought brought me out of this moment? I teach a lot in breath work. Our breath controls everything. So just coming back to the breath, taking one deep mindful breath. Nobody even needs to know you're doing it. You don't have to close your eyes. And then just let it go. It's right at that bottom of that exhale. We're here right now, we're dropped in. Now when the mind takes over again and takes me out, it's like, okay, what was the thought that brought me away from this breath? How can I bring myself in and recognize that the future is going to unfold? I have the vision of my goals. I don't need to be thinking about them at all times. It's going to unfold. I trust. I have full trust in that. My work is to be here right now in this moment, because that's where the sweetness of life is. It's not in the future, and it's definitely not in our past. It's this moment, this breath right here, right now.
Hey, Jared.
My man.
Thanks for being here.
Dude, a year in the making.
A year in the making. So we met, it was January, right? Maybe February of almost a year ago. Mm-hmm. And this time you've become my coach. To me, a therapist in many ways, mentor, friend. This is our first time meeting in person.
Yeah, what a great first person meeting.
It's always such a funny day where you get to know someone for a while. It's like a COVID thing. It's like a weird phenomenon post-COVID where you get to know someone so well over the internet for a year or more. Then you meet them in person and you're like, wow, you're like way taller than I thought. Or something like that.
That's what I said to you this morning.
Totally.
Yeah.
Well, appreciate you being here, man.
Yeah, dude.
I want to dive right in with something that's been on my mind a lot lately. And today we're here to talk about purpose. Mm-hmm. And man, young men struggle with this so much. There's this wild trend that I've noticed, and candidly, I'm a part of it in a sense, that takes place largely on TikTok and a bit on Instagram, and I think it's been a big thing for like a year or two now. And I call this trend the Great Disappearance, where you've got very ambitious young men, usually in their mid to late 20s, that are part of this little subculture, this sub-community. And it's very dark, it's very black and white, it's very noir, if you will. And the culture that's emerged, if I could paint a picture of it, is these young men are being fed this storyline to disappear. And what I mean by that is to wake up really early, 5 a.m., cold plunge, journal, sauna, black coffee, and immediately go to the gym and just freaking like put on the headphones, big hoodie, and just lift hard, and then go work all day. And then come home and maybe lift again, and meal prep, stretch, and go to sleep at 7:30 and wake up and do it again. And you do this for 5 years, 10 years. You don't date, you don't watch TV, you don't drink, you don't do drugs. It's like a very long dopamine detox, if you will, to emerge this god on the other side. And it's this like really, really aggressive take on focus and work hard, because the delayed gratification, that's so much better, right? And I'm just wondering, how the hell did we get here? What's going on with young, ambitious, and also just successful men in general, and trying to find their purpose? And how is that the destination that we've gotten to?
Yeah, I mean, very insightful thought and questioning, but the first word that comes to mind is balance. And when we start adopting that mentality of all or nothing, I feel we've come out of balance. And when we are throwing all of ourselves into the disappearing, we're not doing the real work of how are we being godlike within our communities? How are we learning how to show up for those around us? That there is no then, there is no I'm going to do this isolation work now. There's a time and place, I believe, to do isolation work and to go within and unpack kind of the darkness. But all of those things that I see in the men that I've been working with, the word is burnout. It just leads to burnout, that you throw it all in, you disappear for that amount of time. For what? What are you really trying to do it for? And a lot of us are thinking we're doing it for this idea of success. And I know that that's a big topic of today, but it's really unpacking, well, what is success? What does that mean to that individual person? And when we're adhering to this script or this idea or this formula that's been fed to us externally, we're trying to adhere to this idea of success that's been told us of what success is. And a lot of people who get to that point recognize that that's not quite the success that they were wanting originally.
Let's dial it back a little bit. Tell me about the men's work that you do. How long have you been doing this, and what do you do?
Yeah. Oh, man. I mean, this is what I would call my life's work. So I've been stemmed in this world of coaching and mental health work for about 10 years. And it's been about 2.5 years where it's been very clear to me that my work is with men, with young men who are trying to step more authentically and confidently into their best self. And their best self meaning this person beneath their thoughts, beneath their emotions, beneath what society has told them what I should be. Letting go of the shoulds and really connecting to the core of who I am, how do I want to show up, and how do I want to be of service or have a purpose in this world around me. So once I really identified that my sweet spot was working with men, the path just starts unfolding organically. You start meeting one guy and you start serving that guy, and that guy then introduces you to another, and then you start recognizing there's a whole world out there of men's organizations and men's work and men's groups. And so for me, my whole journey has been around this idea of like following threads of curiosity. And that's when I get a little nudge or something comes my way, I challenge myself to go explore it.
Yeah.
And through exploring that has led me into this world of men's work and men's coaching and focusing all my energy and all my efforts into being of service to guys.
Yeah. What would you say is the first story that pops into your head that helped you realize, like, this is the work I need to be doing?
Oh, I mean, it's general, but it's working with guys like you. It's finding men who are stemmed in their true masculine self, who are starting to ask their deeper questions. It's when I'm working with different clients and I'm seeing the light bulbs go off in their mind of like, whoa, that's what it is. And that's a deeper aspect of myself I've never uncovered. That's what success means to me. It's watching and witnessing radical transformation in men's lives and seeing how they're applying that in the world around them and planting seeds in all those people around them. So that would probably be like, I don't know if there's like that first one, but I look back on a certain client actually, and he had done everything right, and he was working for the big startups, the big tech companies. And he came to me because he started asking, there's got to be more to life than this. And so through working with him, we started unpacking more of like, what are his dreams? What are his joys? What are his passions? And it really started with him unpacking this idea of outside of work, he wanted to host a retreat. He's like, I want to get my friends together. I want to cook. I want to play games. I want to have music. I just want to like be in good community. And so he kept developing this idea. And it wasn't so much about him creating the actual retreat as it was the beginning, the steps of unpacking like what this could look like, get the ball going. And he went through a few different layoffs, changed jobs, kept finding the same level of unfulfillment working in those settings that he was convinced were going to provide him all of his dreams and desires. He was getting burnt out and fed up with it. And flash forward a couple months working together, he uncovered this new passion for culinary, and he just took it and ran with it. And he recognized that nothing that he did was a waste of time. There was no failures. It was all building blocks to get him to exactly where he is. Yeah. And it's been a couple years now, and he has built a thriving high-end food delivery service. He's catering to the executives that he once served, but every day he's in the kitchen now. And dude, just watching this guy light up, watching his passion come forth when we reconnect, and that it's like that was a big catalyst for me. Like, dude, there's not a better feeling in this world than watching a man step into his authentic, confident self.
When he stepped into that self, and the week of, maybe the month of being like, I'm going to do this thing, did he and you see so many other positive things in his life take place at the same time? I mean, almost serendipitously?
Absolutely. It's all related. I mean, you could probably look back to when we first started working together. One of the first exercises we do, it's a little generic, but it's called the Wheel of Life. And what that does is it just gives you a representative picture as to where you're at. It's a holistic outlook of your entire life.
Yeah, break it down for pretend I don't know about this now.
Yeah. So
what's the wheel of life?
So, I mean, visualize like a wheel or a pie even. And the idea of the wheel of life is it separates your life into like 8 or 9 different buckets. Mm-hmm. So many of us are focused on this bucket of career, right? Career or money. That seems to be what's really driving our focus. Even relationship, career, money, relationship. And we put all of our energy into that. But when we really scale back, we recognize that we as humans, we as men are made up of many different pieces of this pie. We have fun and recreation. We have our personal development. We have our friends and family. We have our intimate relationships. We have our career, this whole picture of what it is. And so when we do this exercise, it gives you a visual aid of where you're at balance in your life. And there's no need to be at perfect, what would I say, 10s on all the levels. It's about how are we balanced. And when you can find that balance and when you see things visually, you can start to recognize okay, I'm putting so much energy into an unfulfilling career, and look, that's affecting my relationships with self. Look, I've put so much energy into fun and recreation, and yet my career is lacking. So for me, back to that original question of where is the balance in life? How can we always return to balance? We're this extremist culture where we want to go all in on something, and it leads us to this to burnout and imbalance. So where's the middle path in all of this?
I remember when we first did my wheel of life, it was it's like a pie chart, and we colored pencil filled in each pie to see how big the slices were, and it's looking at holy crap, damn, I'm spending so much time in this one area, so much energy in this one area, and so little in this other area. I feel so unfulfilled in this one area and so full in the other area. And I think we looked at it again maybe 6 months later, and it was wild to see how it shifted. And you're oh wow, yeah, all this labor I've been putting in over the last 6 months in different areas to start to balance it out. You could start to be oh cool, I did X, Y, and Z here, and that one got bigger, and I did a little bit there, and that one got smaller. And you could look well, how do I feel now? What has come from this? What have been the fruits of this labor over the last couple of months? How often do you think we should be addressing and looking at the wheel of life and continuously iterating on it? So it's a weekly thing or an annual thing?
Oh, I mean, if you have the ability, it's a daily thing.
Okay.
I mean, what I suggest a lot when I work with somebody is it's all about programming the subconscious mind, that leaving visual aids around. So as I instructed with you, it's I'm going to give you this image of where you're at right now and leave it out. Tape it to your fridge, make it the background on your phone. It's not about always consciously staring at it, but you want to start the mind picking up on those subtle cues, because as your mind starts seeing that image over and over and over again, you naturally will start gravitating towards the balance and where you need to improve. This is how you start manifesting things,
Sure.
And if you want to dive into kind of your journey of where we were and what you were desiring when we first met, and how fast, once we got clear on what that was, how fast that manifested in your life.
Yeah, I mean, looking back, I had just moved from New York to Los Angeles, so felt pretty lonely. But I had gotten settled there for 2 months. I got settled in my home, and I found my coffee shop, right? Didn't have to unpack anymore. But yeah, I was feeling lonely, and so community was one that needed to improve. Finances. I just spent a lot of money to move, and I, took some big risks to build a new company at the time. It felt as if I just bought a house. And I was well, we got this house now, but I don't have any cash because I just bought the house with it. So something feels off. And I got a lot of work I got to put into the house. But for me, it was starting a company and then moving into a new house. So that one felt lacking, and it held me back in ways. But the wildest thing was, I think the reason we started chatting was because I was going on a couple of dates. And I kept hearing from the women that I was going out with, 2 women in particular said to me, they were you seem really guarded. You don't seem very open. And I was hurt because I always looked at myself as an open person. People I have female friends, my sister, people in my life, they'd be you gotta open your heart, open up, right? And I always thought I'm open, I'm not guarded. Literally 2 women that I just met online are looking me in the face and being you're not very open. You're pretty guarded. And I didn't even know what category that would go in, but clearly something was off. What do you remember from that time?
Yeah, I mean, it was your deep hunger for companionship and relationship.
Yeah.
And using those words guarded, using those signs externally and really unpacking, was that your truth? And, we uncovered a lot that was, and how do we start opening you up? And as you became receptive to doing that work and diving in, you attracted a partner very quickly. Mm-hmm. That's the power of programming the subconscious mind, of like, naturally, as you start to unpack, naturally, as you start saying, I'm imbalanced in this area of my life, the more you can remind yourself of that, you naturally will gravitate towards attracting what it is that you're looking for. So for you at that time, we've crossed a lot of roadblocks since then together, but it was attracting a partnership. I want that experience of having my companion by my side, and I want to go through this with somebody. Yeah. And the second we identified that, she came to you very quickly.
Sure. Something that's coming to mind for me right now is the topic of manifestation. Mm-hmm. And I've struggled with that word in a lot of ways over the last couple of years. One, it's become kind of a hot word in pop culture, especially amongst the communities of the women in my life, mm-hmm. friends, sister, etc. I just, for some reason, that word feels so soft and delicate to me, and I want to just naturally more identify as this like tough guy, like this like masculine kind of hardened dude, and that's a lot of what we'll get into today too, because I'm not actually really that guy, and that guy, I was that guy, I wanted to be that guy, it was so unhealthy. What are your thoughts on the word manifestation?
Well, for me, it's a part of my everyday life, so it doesn't carry that same charge.
Yeah, what does it carry for you?
Truth. It's a universal law that when we can set our minds to something, we can create it. It's the power of our thoughts, our beliefs, and emotions. And when we start really understanding what that is, start listening to our thoughts, start creating our true desires, start listening to what is our dreams, what is our goals, and we start taking little baby steps. It's not about these giant leaps. It's what's the little tiny step today that can get me closer to this dream. Mm-hmm. I have this vision in my mind, that we naturally start gravitating towards it. We naturally start building it. That we look around and every moment has been a manifestation of our thoughts. Leading up to this moment right here, right now, we've welcomed each other in our lives. We're manifesting at all times. So whether it's creating, whether it's willing into existence, I mean, these are different words you could use. But for me, it's like I work a lot on releasing the charge behind words. Words are so like, they box us in. And like you said, it's like manifestation, meditation's another word that I come across a lot in my work and in my life, and it scares people. You put up this block of like, it doesn't work for me. I tried manifesting, it doesn't work for me. Yeah. But it's like, look at professional athletes and how much they use the power of visualization. Yeah. And there's proven science behind just picturing you winning, just picturing you achieving what it is that you're wanting, puts you ahead of the curve so much more than the actual training in and of itself. Sure. And so to me, that's manifestation. And I look back on my life, and I think you could probably spend time on your life of like, you had a vision of something and you took those little steps, and like, before you know it, here it was manifested. Yep.
I want to talk about, well, I'd love to hear your story of $5,000.
Yeah.
Tell me about this.
So I graduated from college. I mean, yeah, when I graduated from college, I had no money to my name. And
sounds familiar, like a lot of us.
Yeah. And so for me, I had this idea in my head of like, what would life be like if I just had $5,000? And it consumed every aspect of my day of like, just visualizing it.
Yeah, what was the visual?
I would be happier. What I could do with that kind of money, life would be so much easier. I'd have that sense of security. I'd feel proud of myself. I'd feel more confident.
So you were focused on how you'd feel versus what you'd have, which is pretty profound actually for a young kid.
Yeah. I look back and it wasn't so much. What I have is the buying power, sure. But it was more of like, that sense of confidence, a sense of, okay, I'm on my way. I don't have any money now. And I just remember spending so much energy visualizing what $5,000 would feel like for me to have. And I had just graduated from college, and I took a job in LA at a startup, and I was very skilled and successful right off the bat, top 10% of the company in sales, and started making really good money. And very quickly, I got to my $5,000 mark. And leading up to that day, I remember like, dude, I'm going to celebrate. I'm going to, do something good for myself. I'm going to go to a meal or whatever. And the day that I hit $5,000 in my account, my brain didn't even miss a beat before it said, I wonder what $10,000 would feel like. What would $10,000 feel like? And that became the new focus. And at that time, I started really kind of peeling back layers and recognizing that the work I was doing was not what I was meant to do. But at the same time, I was really driven by the money. But I also wanted to quit this job. And so, I speak a lot on behalf of the universe, call it God or higher self or just self, whatever you resonate with. But I speak on behalf of the universe. And out of all places for the universe to lead me to go work, I quit this corporate job, this startup job I was working, and I ended up landing in Malibu, California, working at a high-end sushi restaurant. And every single day for years, I was bartending and serving our world's rich and famous. And at the same time, I had this mindset of like, okay, what would it feel like to be like them? I'm at that $10,000 mark, great. And the second I hit 10,000, I was like, okay, what would $15,000 look like? And I look back and it's like I sacrificed so much to get to that goal that I never even appreciated. I gave up going out with friends. I gave up dating, all because I was afraid to spend that money and enjoy that time because I was so focused on I will be happy when. And then I started seeing this mirror every single day at work as I'm bartending. And, that was my first foray into mental health before I even knew it, of your bartender is your therapist. And I'm working at this local restaurant, and here I am catering to our world's rich and famous. And they're opening up to me, and they're my regulars, and they're sitting at the bar, and alcohol loosens everybody up. And they're starting to tell me like really deep personal stuff. And at 22 years old, I'm hearing things about what we read about in magazines of how happy these people must be. They're showing up in their Bentleys and Ferraris and Porsches, and they have houses on the beach and houses all over the world, and they're traveling. And a lot of these people were so unfulfilled. Yeah. A lot of these people had sacrificed relationship and sense of true purpose and for this idea of external success. And even then, I wasn't even grasping it. I was like, okay, that's great. I'm here to hold space for you. I was doing, quasi-coaching. I didn't know what I was doing at the time. And I started burning out hearing all this. And so to kind of cut this a little short, I started doing some backpacking around the world. First, it was 3 months around Europe. Then it was 6 months around Southeast Asia and India. India was my first experience recognizing that money was not going to provide me the happiness that I had convinced myself my entire life it was. Oh, yeah.
What convinced you?
I stepped into one of the most beautiful and rich cultures I had ever experienced, where from our societal standards, we're some of the poorest and poverty-stricken people. And when I was walking through the slums of India to see the beauty in their soul and their sense of hospitality and the way that they're a community and take care of one another, I get chills talking about India, like radically changed my life. Yeah. And it was in that moment, it's like, I don't think money is quite the happiness that I've put so much energy into. It's time to start reevaluating my life, my purpose. What am I doing instead of just chasing the next bar? And every time I hit this bar, and I think this is so common always, once you climb the mountain, you're standing at that peak of the mountain.
Look at that mountain.
There it is. Yeah. We've talked about that a lot in the past of like, there's always that next level. And so the work is, how am I enjoying this present moment?
Yeah.
How am I allowing money to find me as me, what I say, living in full alignment with my highest self? And it flips it on the head of what a lot of us have been taught of like, chase the money and the rest will follow. Be more successful, get more stuff, show society who I am, and it will make me feel more confident versus I'm going to explore more of what drives me, what excites me, what fuels me. I'm going to see how much more in tune with self I can get. Yeah. And the more that I nurture that, can I allow money to flow in a whole different way?
Yeah. I'd love to almost have a series of conversations with young men, starting with like the 17, 18-year-old, and then we can get to the 23-year-old and the 25-year-old. But to start with the 17, 18-year-old, I remember very vividly, I was 17, 18. This was a long time ago. And I would talk to people, men and women, I'd be like, where are you going to college? Or, what's going on? They're like, oh, I'm going to this school. I'm like, oh, never even heard of that. Like, why that school? Oh, they have my program. I'm like, what's your program? Like, what do you mean they have your program? And I wasn't a dick about it at the time, but looking back, I'm like, what are you talking about? 17, 18-year-old kid being like, oh, they've got this like super niche specific like pre-med thing because like that's who I was born to be. I'm like, how the hell do you know who you were born to be? Because you've never even left the 1 square mile radius of our little town here in upstate New York.
Yeah.
But they have your program. And then all those kids who went and joined that program left that program eventually and did something else. So what's going on culturally where young kids, I mean, it's pretty simple when you look at it, like everyone feels like they need to have it all figured out by 18 years old because then you go to college, it's this huge investment, but we're like putting all this pressure on these kids to know. It's a lot from the parents. What's your viewpoint on that, and what's the conversation that we may encourage having instead?
My viewpoint is it's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
When we look at our education system, all we've done is cut. We've cut programs. We've cut the arts. We've, from a young age, told children, kids, that creativity leads to nothing in this world. Unless you can afford a program, a private school that nurtures and fosters that thing, and the majority of us haven't had that experience, we get about 4 choices: STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. And what that system does is it teaches kids that you can choose anything you want in this world as long as it falls under science, technology, engineering, and math. Those are the only paths to happiness and success.
When did that start?
Oh, man. I mean, it's like, for me, I decided at 6 years old that I was going to be a successful businessman. I was always very good at connecting with adults and having conversations. I had my first business at 6. I was hustling. I was very attracted to money at a young age. And we had a family friend who told me one day, he was a successful businessman, and he said, you're going to be great in sales one day. For me at 6, that planted a deep, deep, deep seed. Yeah. And that was my focus. So all my decisions from 6 years on, I had my first job at 13. I worked my butt off. I went to Purdue University. At the time, it was a top 10 business school. It was all about following that track because I heard it externally. I was influenced externally. It took me this journey around the world. It took me, we can dive more into it, but I spent a year in Ecuador studying under shamans, doing intense healing work to recognize that my skills, that wasn't my purpose to be successful in business with those skills, being able to connect with people. My purpose was in mental health, and I'm 36 now, and I didn't recognize this until I was about 28. And so our culture especially, it's like decide at 6, decide at 12, make a decision before sophomore year of high school at the latest, who you want to be and how you're going to get there. And God forbid you choose a different track because you've invested so much time, energy, and money. And the second we step into college, we're signing our names on a dotted line without even knowing what we're doing. At 18 years old, we're taking out $100,000, $200,000 loan that we don't even know. Nobody's teaching us what this stuff even is or what it means. Yeah. And so now you graduate and now you've handcuffed and pigeonholed yourself into a career where you may wake up and realize maybe this isn't it. And so for me, the solution is really fostering the creative self. A lot of who we are is coming from, it's 50% of our makeup. Our brain is our analytical side and our creative side, and our society is really squashing that creativity and making us stay very analytical. And so like in my ideal world, it's like, how can we bring more creative to the world? And if we can start activating inner artists, and artists isn't just painters and musicians, those are some of them, but there's many, many, many ways to identify as an artist. We are every single human is an artist and a creator in their own sense. The second we start embracing that, I fully believe, optimistically, we will see our world radically change for the better overnight. It'll happen so fast. Mm-hmm. But we have to get out of this, I need to fit into this square little box, otherwise I'm worthless or not important in this world.
So now let's talk to the 23-year-old who went to do their program, graduated from school, maybe has a decent amount of debt, or hopefully for them, none. But they are pigeonholed into now like, finance, or got this sales job in tech, or they're not sure and they're moving home. But either way, they know deep down in their gut, and they may be very, very terrified to say it out loud or even say it to themselves inside, but they know that it's the wrong path for them. Where do they start?
Self-identity, you have to admit it to yourself first. You can't help anybody who's not ready to be helped, and that even begins.
They can even do it in private, right?
Yeah. I mean, the first step is just self. Yeah. It's not about admitting it. It's recognizing within yourself that something needs to change. The second you admit that, back to manifestation and law of attraction, the second you can acknowledge that, your mind will start creating new pathways. The universe will start presenting you with new options. The other piece is also recognizing that there is no such thing as wasted time. There is no such thing as failure. And so, like, everything you've been through, look back on it in all instances through a lens of gratitude, because it got you to this point. So what, it took you 23 years. I know 80-year-olds who never had this opportunity. I know 80-year-olds who are now just waking up to this idea that I want something different. It's never too late to start pursuing something new, something exciting. So you have the debt. You create a plan instead of staying stuck to it. How, in those 2 hours of free time during your day, no matter how exhausted you may be from your work, how are you exploring something new? How are you dreaming up the new vision? How are you not talking yourself out of it? I think that is probably what gets in most people's ways, is they get inspiration all day long, constantly. It's these thoughts, this little glimpse. You have to start listening and paying attention to your mind and recognizing how fast is your mind talking you out of things, saying, be realistic, or it's too late for me to do that, or I'm not smart enough, or I'm not good looking enough to be who I want to be. And it's like, you had that thought for a reason. What happens if you were to flip that negative bias into something empowering and just try that? Start talking to yourself, and again, see how your world can shift drastically. So at 23, it's like, hey, if you did finance, I guarantee you whatever you explore next, you will see the overlap. You will see how that finance will have provided you with so much to set you up. And I've done this huge shift into mental health. That is my life's work, my passion. Do I look back on my business degree as a waste? Hell no. I'm created a business out of this. This is sustaining my life and providing an amazing lifestyle. Well, I get to live my purpose and be of service. So there is no waste. There is no failure. It's recognizing that and just gratitude. Hey, okay, I recognize now I want something different. I was fed something else. I did it. There's a reason I did it. I learned a lot from it, and I'm ready for what's next.
I think one of the challenges is we make it so overwhelming for ourselves, where it's like, oh, okay, like I have this sales job, got to be up tomorrow at 9 a.m. I got to be there at 9 a.m. tomorrow. It's not in alignment with my purpose. I don't know what my purpose is. So in order to figure it out, I have to like blow my whole life up.
Yeah.
And maybe go back to school or go to grad school, or I got to quit. Or it could just be as simple as like pick up a guitar.
That's it.
For 20 minutes when you get home, or like maybe like walk into the CrossFit gym. What's holding so many of us back from just these like micro baby steps?
Fear.
Because I think of it as like, I mean, okay, I remember vividly for me, I just had this like itch and curiosity when I was in my mid-20s to start martial arts. I'd wrestled a little bit in high school, wasn't very good. I was this like lanky kid, but just had like it was gnawing at me for a while. I was like, I feel like I just need to like explore this stuff. And I didn't quit my job to become a world traveling black belt and like teach my teachers. I just like went to the gym one day. It's like, I want to take a Muay Thai class. The next thing I knew, I like moved across the country and joined another gym, started jiu-jitsu. And then like one day I met this guy at the gym. We were doing jiu-jitsu together. Like maybe a month later, like pretty soon after, became one of my first clients with this new business I wanted to start. It was like, then the business fell into place, and then I moved again, and like, you know, it just like, it wasn't that I needed to completely have the whole plan figured out. It was just, you just have to take that quick little one step to follow your curiosity. But God, was it fucking scary to walk into a gym of fighters, and I don't know how to fight, and be like, can you guys teach me how to fight?
Yeah.
So what's up with the fear piece?
Well, I want to touch on that. I mean, the answer is in taking that one step. And the fear is what holds us back from making any movement. But the more that we practice addressing that fear, the more resilient and strong we become. And the faster you recognize it wasn't so bad. that the second I can be a little vulnerable with myself and admit that I'm not where these other people are, you start receiving the support that you need. So one of my personal mantras for life, one of the reasons why I'm here today, how I've traveled the world and done the things that I've done, is 2 words. It boils down to 2 words. And it's the words, fuck it. And I say that to myself multiple times a day. I apply it to so much. And for me, fuck it is this personal challenge that I play. It's a game that I'm mentally playing with myself always. That when I feel a nudge of discomfort, when something shows up in my world where my brain is like, oh, it feels uncomfortable to go to the gym for the first time. It feels uncomfortable to go talk to that girl that I think is cute. I override that voice that's telling me to stay safe, stay small, stay closed off. And I say those 2 words, fuck it. Why not? What do I have to lose? Mm-hmm. And I find that the more the brain creates fear, it's like anxiety. Anxiety is fear of the future. I think that's probably the emotion so many people identify with today. I'm anxious to go to the gym. I'm creating all this anxiety. It's fear of this story that the mind is creating that rarely plays out in reality. Whereas if I just took that step, yes, it's a little uncomfortable, but then that next step isn't as uncomfortable. And your story is amazing because it's proven everything that we've been talking about so far of you take that one little step. You have this idea, okay, I want to learn jujitsu. I'm drawn to that culture. I'm in my 20s. These guys are years ahead of me, but you know what? I'm just going to go and see what happens. Why not? Fuck it. Let's find out. And you, through that story, just proved to us that you taking that one step led you in a direction you could have never known.
Yeah.
And it all came back to the goal. I want my business. How is this related to my business? I have no idea, but there's a reason I'm being nudged here.
Yeah.
How many times are you going to talk yourself out of that little nudge? There's a reason why you are being called to that gym. You can't predict this. You can't see how this is going to unfold.
Yeah.
Your work is to show up. Your work is to get a little uncomfortable. It's not about saying, I'm not going to be this black belt tomorrow. There's no fuck it. Why? No, it's not the negative fuck it. It's you know what? Who cares? Let me just try and see what's there for me. And then I can evaluate. Then I can feel a little proud of myself for trying something and breaking out of my comfort zone.
Yeah. It makes life so much more rich.
Oh, that's the sweetness, right? It's a fun. It's whoa, where is this going to lead me? This is creative. This is something new to explore. I'm a beginner's mind always.
Yeah. It reminds me a lot of being 11 years old and just being all right, Jake, go outside and don't come home until it's dark out.
Yeah.
Which unfortunately isn't really a thing anymore in this country, but it definitely was when I was a kid. And you just would go in the woods and see, oh, what's under that rock? Nice worms. I wonder how those taste. Eat it. Ugh, it tastes bad. Now I don't eat worms anymore, but I know what it feels like to pick up a really heavy rock. Oh, what's at the top of that tree? Let's climb it. Oh shit, I broke my wrist. But I got a cool cast that everyone signs. It just is this absolutely following the threads of curiosity.
The difference between that 11-year-old self and that 23-year-old self is the present moment.
And that my body's just a little bit bigger. But it's just the same person.
But it's your 11-year-old self is present. It's moving from moment to moment to moment, not worried about what's down the road, not afraid of what's down the road. It's, I'm going to be here right now. I'm going to be immersed in this right now. Whereas the older we get, the more we're creating these stories of the future that, again, rarely come true.
Sure.
So for a lot of the work I do with the men of the world is how can we live more presently? Mm-hmm. Like you said, that's where the richness of life is. It's in this moment. It's in the curiosity of this moment and exploring it.
I struggle, and you know this, but I struggle so much with being present. I feel like I spend 75% of my waking life thinking about the future, mm-hmm. and often surmising these plans of every possible outcome that may take place that I can be prepared. A lot of that stems from childhood stuff we've uncovered. And I also spend a decent amount of my time, probably 20% of my time, thinking about the past, mm-hmm. ruminating on it a bit, wish I had done things differently, thinking about memories, all that. But it's so rare that I'm just here, now, in it. Mm-hmm. And I don't think I'm alone in that.
No.
Why is it so hard, and what am I doing wrong? How do I just be more present?
Well, there's no switch. It's a practice. I mean, look at like Buddhist monks. This is their practice for their entire life. So we learn tools, we learn techniques. Mindfulness is something that I'm a huge proponent of and a teacher of. Mindfulness is awareness, bringing full awareness to your thoughts without judgment and on purpose or with intention. So it's about observing the mind. It's about practicing of like, okay, I'm not in this moment. How can I observe what thought brought me out of this moment? Mm-hmm. What is that thought? Mm-hmm. Does that thought serve me? Is that thought trapped in the past? I can't control the past. The past got me to today. How can I release the past? I'm all about releasing it in gratitude, even if it's hard stuff. And that's a whole beast to unpack around trauma and whatnot, but it's like it made you who you were today. Say thank you to it. If you're looking to the future is not here, and you can probably use baselines from your own life of like the future never plays out how our mind, you can spend all day.
Never does.
Think about how much energy you have wasted in thinking about the future. And I'm myself, I am not a full 1,000% present monk. That's not reality. But the work is the practice of bringing yourself back. Mm-hmm. And so with mindfulness coupled with, I teach a lot in breath work, the power of our breath. Our breath controls everything. Mm-hmm. So just coming back to the breath, taking one deep mindful breath. Nobody even needs to know you're doing it. You don't have to close your eyes. And then just let it go. It's right at that bottom of that exhale. We're here right now. We're dropped in. Now when the mind takes over again and takes me out, it's like, okay, what was the thought that brought me away from this breath? How can I bring myself in and recognize that the future is going to unfold? I have the vision of my goals. I don't need to be thinking about them at all times. Yeah. It's going to unfold. I trust. I have full trust in that. My work is to be here right now in this moment because that's where the sweetness of life is. It's not in the future, and it's definitely not in our past. It's this moment, this breath right here, right now. So it's that practice, constantly coming back. And the more that you practice that, the more you start bringing awareness to your thoughts, the easier it becomes. But it's like working out. First day you went to jiu-jitsu, I bet you were sore as hell. And then after a couple times, your body starts adapting. You start building strength. You get new technique. Yep. So you got to start somewhere.
Yeah. And what's the connection then of presence and purpose?
Yeah. I mean, your purpose is in the present moment. But the more that you can bring yourself back and start really making space for that, your purpose will begin to reveal itself. Yeah. So many people are convinced that purpose is this huge thing way outside yourself. For me, I woke up to this realization. I spent a year in Ecuador. I was doing some healing work and studying under indigenous shamans. I managed a retreat center. And it was in those mountains, in the Andes Mountains, that my purpose came through, my true calling. And it was as simple as, I am here to be of service to others. Okay, what do I do with that? I just start following the threads. How can I be of service to the world around me? What growth do I need to do to be of more service? What am I curious? Being of service for me is how can I be my best self and show up in the world around me? How can I plant seeds everywhere I go? The tangibles are coming. The tangibles have already come through my business, through philanthropy work, through giving back. Those are the little details. But I wouldn't have figured out that that's really what I'm here to do had I not created that inner space. Mm-hmm. And so it's in that moment that you can start really hearing, okay, in that space, all that noise outside, the future, the programming, the conditioning, the thoughts, the wants, the desires are quieted. The stories from the past are quieted. Now I'm sitting here with what I would call my higher self. Now I can really listen. Where am I supposed to be? Who am I here to serve? What can I do? What am I supposed to give to the world? That's what I believe is where our purpose is activated.
I wonder if one of the challenges that a lot of us feel or face are, I don't really know what my options are when it comes to purpose. Like, I haven't found it yet. I haven't figured it out yet. What are some purposes that you've seen men find for themselves that are pretty well defined? Well, just to give some examples.
Let me ask you.
Yeah.
If how in this moment are you leading a life of purpose right now?
Well, it's funny because I don't know if I have the words for it yet. Like, if I were to just meet a stranger at a bar and they're like, what's your purpose? I don't have like the one-liner. But I can say that this is a new one for me, following a thread of curiosity about men's mental health, modern day masculinity. The fuck does it mean to be a man nowadays? And for me, the best thing I know how to do that I'm actually pretty damn good at is just having a candid, open conversation and turn it into a piece of medium, a podcast, and then publish it for others to hear. And so
is that not enough in this moment? Why can't that be enough?
It is
right
absolutely
now?
enough.
So there you go.
Just doing the thing.
I mean, you're showing up, right?
Yeah.
So we want to be able to have that one-liner. You know, that's such like a...
It's sexy.
It is, but it's also like, that's one, in our culture, I don't find this so much in other cultures, but one of the first things people ask you, what do you do?
Yeah.
And
hate that question.
Yeah. Based on how you answer it, our mind creates this little box. And so when somebody asks me like what I do, I mean, I'm very clear on it now. I used to give the skirt around. I would be so insecure. This term life coach has been so watered down, very confident in what I do now, but it's not even so much about what you say, it's how you show up. So you showing up as you gifting the world this, you being curious about mental health right now, is that not purpose in and of itself? What a gift that is to yourself, but to the world around you. Why do we have to overthink so much? Why do we have to put ourselves in these little boxes? And to me, that's the work, is like, hey, who cares what you say? Nobody's listening. Nobody really cares. Those who care about you could care less. Are you happy? Are you full? Are you kind to yourself? Are you kind to the world around you? Well, how is that not purpose enough, right? Doesn't need to be, I've given, and it's great. Those who are giving water to everybody in the world and feeding the homeless, it's like, yeah, but are you kind to the guy in the street? How do you treat your waiter at the restaurant? How are you doing the personal development work? Are you getting to know the soul that embodies this body? Maybe that's your purpose right now. And the tangible is going to change. I know I'm on a path of discovery always. This is what growth is. This is what being human is. But the second we start saying this is it now puts up a block and it leaves you closed off from receiving what else it could be.
Yeah. So I love this exercise of thinking about, like, how do you answer the question, what do you do? I remember so vividly, I'm going to give a shout out to one of my closest friends in the world. Her name is Melissa Joy Kong. And when we met, it was at a dinner in Denver, a dinner party at this cheesy restaurant in Denver, but the food was cheesy, but the place was kind of cool. And I didn't ask her this, but I was sitting next to somebody who was sitting across from her, and they asked her, hey, who are you? And she's like, oh, I'm Melissa. And they're like, oh, cool. What do you do? And she just goes, without hesitation, she goes, I'm on a mission to figure out what true love means. And I heard that, and I looked at her, and I was like, that person seems so cool. What the heck? What is that answer? Because everyone else at the table is like, I'm in tech. I'm a lawyer. I'm a school teacher. She's like, I'm on a mission. First of all, she said that, and then gave this wild thing. But like, yeah, she also ran a marketing agency. Yeah. She didn't say anything about that. Turns out she had just traveled the country for like a year or something, interviewing married couples on love, and like documented the whole thing. Had all these, just basically creating a documentary about it. And that was the beginning of our incredible friendship. And so her and I haven't talked about that answer much, but I'm definitely going to give her a call later and ask about it. But I think that's one really fascinating script. Like, I'm on a mission to blank. Yeah. So first question is, like, what are some other really awesome scripts to answering the question of, like, what do you do? And what do you say if you really have no idea, but God, do you really want to figure it out?
Own it. I think what's sexy about what she said is her level of confidence, and 100%. How she said it had nothing to do with what she would say. It's how confident she felt when she said it. Yeah. And so, like, now that I'm very clear on my scripted answer, I work in personal development and life coaching for men. And I mean, I know that that's what I'm doing, and the way it's received in the world, I love it. It makes me feel good because I own that. I'm confident. Whereas 4 years ago, I would be like, I'm a life coach, and I help people, and sometimes I help with branding and marketing, and I do this, and I work at a restaurant part time, and it was just.
I think about all the answers we hear from people. It's some version of that. Yeah, and you're just kind of like, cool, next.
Yeah. So to answer that, it's like when you're clear on it, stating it with conviction. It's not seeking that external validation. It's not needing somebody to be like, oh, it's just like, no, this is who I am. Yeah. And to that point of, if you don't know, the best thing you can do so that you can start unpacking it is being vulnerable enough to admit that you don't know. how cool is it to be sitting across somebody who would say just that? I would have so much love and want to dive in with them. I'm like, dude, I think that's awesome that you are wanting to discover that. The fact that you're there, what excites you in life? This is just where I would go as a coach and mental health practitioner that I am, of like, let's explore that. But it's like, own it so that you can receive guidance. If you're trying to put on this front of I'm this executive, I'm a CEO of this, it's like our subconscious minds read through bullshit so fast, and that's where it's like next, and that's where you find yourself isolated, and you're putting on these fronts because you're repeating something that you think society wants you to say. And the second we fall into that, we're not connected to self. We're connected to our ego, and it's not being received how we want it to be received.
Guilty as that as the next person for sure over time, and got a lot of work to do on like, how do I answer the question? I started not asking that question anymore. I stopped asking that question. Now I ask some fun version of, and I even say it. I'm like, yeah, everyone asks like, what do you do? But I don't like that. I ask, who are you?
Yeah.
Who are you? And no one knows how to answer that.
Yeah.
Which is very few people do. And on episode 2 in this series, that's how we opened the episode. I was like, so who are you? And people are always like, oh God. And they think about it. And they're like, I'm a father. I'm a musician. I'm 40. But it's never what they do for their job.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. And it's an interesting segue to when you listen to like dating podcasts or pay attention to relationship coaching, there's some storyline I hear a lot of like the sexiest thing, especially in a man from a woman's eyes, is he's mission driven, and there's nothing that's going to take him off his mission, his path. Like he's got a vision and a purpose and a mission, and he's on his way. And any hiccup in the day or change of plans or whatever doesn't really matter because he's still mission driven, and like that's pretty attractive. And if you're not that guy and you're kind of just this like aimless and not even really trying to figure it out, it's not attractive. And that's the like binary storyline that I've been fed for about a decade now, maybe more. And so I think of it as like, all right, if I want to attract a great partner, I got to have a mission first because that's going to be attractive to her, all that stuff. What do you think of that?
I mean, you said that we're binary, and it comes back. This culture is so in these polar extremes. You're either this mission-driven, but let's discount what comes with that, right? So let's talk to couples who have been together a long time with the man who is so mission-driven, and his mission is financial success in business. What has he sacrificed? How has that relationship been a disadvantage or has hurt them in a way because he's missed out on what? Because nothing has gotten in his way. Not even his kids' baseball games, not even watching his kids grow up, not being there for his wife when she needed because of his mission. That society's like, oh, isn't that sexy in a man? When it's like, let's talk about reality. And then the aimless guy, again, it's like, why not be attracting a partner who's there to support you through thick and thin? Why not wanting somebody who maybe will find you when you're feeling aimless and gives you that support and that nudge and that space to be vulnerable in your true self to help uncover that. So, a lot of our talk today has come back to this word balance. Where's the balance in either one of those? That it's not all or nothing. We can't live in this binary world. There's a spectrum with a billion tiny little dots all along the way of where people fit in. And externally, we're told you're either A or B. And if you're A, you will attract this. And if you're B, you will attract this, or you won't have this. And it's like, that's not reality by any means.
Yeah. It seems like in American culture and even in the English language, there's so many binaries.
Yeah, I mean, that's language in general. We need language in order to communicate, but that's the disservice of what language does, is it makes it so our brain can put things in a neat little box. But reality is nothing's in a neat little box, but we want it to be because we've been told. So it's like that is the disadvantage, especially to English, because we don't have a lot of words that a lot of other cultures have.
Yeah. One thing I love about working with you is every week after we meet, you send me a follow-up email with journal prompts for the next week. And these are amazing journal prompts. First of all, I'm curious how you think of this stuff. I'd be very impressed if you use ChatGPT for it, or you just think of it off. I mean, it's incredible questions.
Thank you.
What would be some journal prompts you'd give to the young man, or at any age, the man who is trying to figure out his mission or purpose, either for the first time or maybe something new?
Well, where do the journal prompts come from? They come from you.
Yeah.
They're not coming from me. I'm just formulating it into a question so that you can sink deeper into yourself and unpack things. Journaling is one of the most underrated tools. Journaling and meditation, those are two things I emphasize. When you start working with me, I gift you a morning meditation practice to at least start practicing and trying. And it's kind of a non-negotiable that you start journaling, because journaling is an avenue to get out of your head into your heart and out onto paper to see it visually. So, you know, every single person, there's no generic journal prompt. I meet every individual where they're at. A journal prompt that I gave you when we first started working together is very different than any other guy that I've served when I first started working with him. Two of the big things that I like to start with is what I would call like ceremonial journal prompts. These are two very powerful ones. Okay. The first one is just the question, what are you ready to release? What aspects of yourself, what programming, what pieces no longer serve you that you're ready to let go of? And once you write that statement on the top of your piece of paper, what am I ready to release? It's not about thinking ahead of what should I write about this. It's about putting your damn pen to the paper and just letting it flow. And it does, as you have seen. It's like it just flows out. But when I try and create the narrative, it's hard to create what it is. Get moving, get the action going. Yeah. So you write it out as long as it needs to be. I encourage you to read it one time. You go outside and you burn it. And as you're burning it, it's a ceremony. You're witnessing the smoke get carried up to the sky, the heavens. It's a release. I'm releasing this and gifting it up to something beyond myself. And once it's burned, you sprinkle the ashes back down to the earth. You gift it to the earth. And it's powerful what happens internally when you actually let that go. So that's one of the first things I invite new clients to do. And then a day later, the second prompt is, what are you ready to receive? What do you want? What are you looking for now? Now that you've done this release work, and you repeat that same process. Write it out, read it once, burn it, let it go. I would say we start there, but hop on a call and we'll unpack, what are your prompts? What do you need right now in your life?
What do you see coming up a lot, maybe some shocking patterns in the last year with men?
I mean, everybody's at such different places in their life, but a lot of it is the pattern is tying sense of confidence and sense of identity to external success and wanting to be somewhere where they're not ready to be just yet. Sacrificing happiness in this moment, thinking and convincing themselves that I'll only be happy when.
Yeah. I think that's an important starting point, though, where you want something, you're not ready for it yet, and you've got a rather clear path of the quest you need to go on to become that man. Have those things. Without that initial vision or goal, then you're kind of just sitting aimless, kind of sitting still.
Yeah, but that goal, if you have that mindset and that belief and you're taking those steps, absolutely, and you take those steps in full trust. But when that goal leads to stress, anxiety, disease, not feeling worthy enough, it makes you freeze. It creates a trauma response. Mm-hmm. So sometimes that goal is recognizing I'm not there yet and I want this, but again, what am I sacrificing in the meantime? I'm making myself sick over this. Yeah. I'm getting so stressed out. This is where disease comes in. It's unease. Mm-hmm. So again, we come back to that balance. Every man is at a different place. I work with guys who are super driven and they're ready to take those steps. Okay, let's unpack what are those steps? What can they be? Mm-hmm. And then there's the guys that I want this so bad, but I'm beating myself up. My internal dialogue is you're not worthy. You're an idiot. You fucked up. I mean, it's just that toxic brain loop.
I've been that guy my whole life.
Yeah, and that, where's that leading you?
Well, you know the answer. We've been, that's my default, is to be that man my whole life. And the work we've been doing the last year especially has been building a new default. I think a lot about, in the tech scene, in the startup world, we talk a lot about traction, mm-hmm. product market fit, finding the thing that's starting to actually sell and people are begging for it. And probably 90% of startups never even make it to that point. Which is the statistics, just the nature of the game. And then we also talk a lot about burnout. Mm-hmm. Burnout is basically a fancy word for being overworked. And a lot of founders die by burnout. meaning their company fails because they just do it. And I love this new definition of burnout, which is, I'll credit my friend Amy Baglin for this. She shared on a podcast that I hosted with her a few years ago. She's like, burnout is what happens when you've been playing the wrong role for too long. And now there's this new storyline I want to add to it, which is the best traction is winning. It's micro success. And I really agree with that now so far. When you constantly are getting kicked in the teeth and you're constantly losing, it's very discouraging, and it's very, very, very hard to continue to wake up every morning and get in your cold plunge and keep going. We have to do that, and we have to develop the discipline, right, to do that. But it's kind of like, think about how hard it is to keep going to the gym day in and day out and never get results. And but you're still sore all the time. You're going to definitely stop at some point because you're a human being. But once you start to see the number go down on the scale a little bit, you see the six-pack poke through, you start to see some positive changes, some reinforcement, you're now pretty obsessed with the gym, and now it's easier to go the next day. Now you've got momentum, you've got traction. And so I think a little bit about career especially. I spent so many years focused on these huge wins. I need to make $25 million, $100 million. I need to raise $50 million, huge seed round. I need to be on the cover of Forbes. And until then, I'm not really accomplished. I'm not really proud of myself. I'm not really happy. And then I started doing a project because I saw a means of helping out some friends and making a little bit of money. And it had these tiny little micro wins. We made $25 in profit. We got 10 new followers, and we had a video go viral on TikTok. And these small little wins, I'm oh, I'm going to keep going tomorrow. Let's just do more and more. Next thing I know, the ability and likelihood to make the $100 million, to raise the $50 million round, to be on the cover of Forbes, it's actually attainable now because the small wins just kept leading to the next thing. And so I wonder if the narrative should be more about chasing the low-hanging fruit, small little wins because they just keep leading you to the next thing, versus skipping all that and going straight to the slam dunk. From a coaching perspective, how would you make sense of that, communicate that, and almost prescribe that to somebody?
What's one little baby step that I did today to get me closer to my goal?
Yeah.
What's the littlest thing that I did, and then can you take a moment and celebrate that? And that's it. There's always something that you can take a moment and celebrate. Even when you feel like everything around you is crumbling, you can celebrate how you handled that situation. You can recognize that in the times of my lowest have been the times of my best growth, that this is only going to lead me to something else. It's all about mindset. So it's not so much of I will celebrate when, it's in this moment, am I proud of who I was today? If I wasn't, how am I going to do it differently tomorrow? Not in 6 months, not in a year from now. It's what is in this moment that I can celebrate about me. And that's how you keep your confidence high.
Yeah. I'd like to shift gears kind of into our final segment here and talk about insecurity. A lot about masculine insecurity nowadays. One topic in particular that has me really fascinated is this new mindset, this new storyline, I should say, instead of mindset, new storyline that a lot of ambitious men are actually, they get insecure around ambitious women. Why?
Yeah.
What's going on there?
Well, I personally find ambitious women so sexy.
Me too.
Yeah, right?
I love it.
Right?
See, it's a non-negotiable for me.
To me, that's the new masculine.
Yeah.
That what happens it's an old framework of outdated masculinity, of the man needs to be this financial provider instead of provider. Let's unpack what provider could mean versus just money. Why not a provider being somebody who can hold space? Why not being a provider who can support his woman? Relationships are taking on a whole new meaning and a whole new dynamic, and we need to either embrace it or we're getting left behind with it. So it's how can we see a relationship as two humans coming together at different places in their life, and one or the female may be making more money? How great. What is that going to do? How is that having that financial piece taken care of not going to make you feel so threatened? I think that's the word that a lot comes up with in that sense with men, of I feel threatened because I'm supposed to be, I'm embarrassed, I'm insecure because my lady, my partner is making more money than me. when I think about me, if and when the journey to fatherhood comes into play, like I'm establishing myself right now financially and setting up my business and whatnot. But my big goal, if fatherhood is supposed to be part of my life, is I want to be present in my kid's life. And so if I have a woman who wants to have a wonderful, thriving career and she's happy in it and making great money, hell yeah, I want to hang out with my kids. I didn't have the dad present in my life. You know, my father died when I was 6, and from that age on, it was like, I want to kind of be the dad I never had. What does that look like? Maybe it will mean I'm making money too, but it doesn't have to be so one or the other. Why do we have to feel so threatened? That's so societal, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think like when we share, what do we do? And a lot of times guys get insecure around that situation of she's making all this money. It's like our work as men is to step more fully into our authentic, confident self, to give no fucks about when you say something, you're speaking your truth. Stop caring how people are receiving it. And I think that's what lends to the most insecurity, is we're so afraid of how the world is perceiving us, whereas we really recognize the world's not looking at us. And those who are judging you probably have a whole slew of their own issues going on, and they're probably people who don't even serve your highest good. So quiet that noise and just start stepping more fully into confidently you. When you welcome a partner in, see where your relationship's supposed to go. These gender roles that are so... we're seeing where it's led us in our society, and it hasn't led us anywhere good. So let's try something new.
Yeah.
Let's embrace the discomfort. Money, again, as we open today's talk up with the pie, money and career is one little tiny sliver of your pie. So if you have a partner who's taking care of that piece, how are you taking care of all the other pieces within your relationship?
Mm-hmm. What are some other ways that you can provide for a partner as a man and feel like a frickin' man? That are not financial?
Oh man, can you be there? Can you be present with your woman? Or if you're not only women, can you be present with your partner when they're going through a hard time?
How come so many men don't know how to do that?
Oh, we haven't been taught the skills. We haven't been taught the emotional tools.
Yeah.
We fear emotion. It's something I've worked on. When I sit across a female partner who is crying, I default back to tears. I associate tears with sadness and hurt, and that means I'm hurting this person. Whereas can I just sit with them, and that's the space I need to hold.
I mean, let's make this stupid simple. You're sitting on a couch with your partner, and she's crying. What do you do with your hands? What do you say? How do you sit? Like tactically, how should the man compose himself to provide for her in that moment?
There is no should. It's understanding your partner. It's understanding what she needs, and even asking her. I think that's the thing.
What's the question? What
do you need? Do you want me to share? Do you want me to help? Do you need to just sit here? Do you want me to hold you?
And she'll answer.
Of course. Yeah. I mean, in a healthy relationship, yeah. But like, that's also a default of man. I'm going to fix this. I know how to fix this. And that's not what women have been saying.
I'm going to go get her some flowers and plan a date night, and that'll fix everything.
We need to listen to one another. There's not enough depth in our communication. And I speak very generally. There's, of course, great communication happening in certain relationships. But it's like, get to know the person that you're investing time with. So when she or that partner is going through something challenging, recognize what they need, because every person is different. There is no should. There is no script. There is no general way to be. You're in that person's life. Your presence is what they want. So how can you be present with them and ask that question? What do you need? And then how can you go and provide that?
Yep. To wrap things up, thinking about purpose and providing, all the topics we talked about today, what's one step someone can take right now to start to move one inch closer to feeling like they're a little bit more purpose-driven and mission-aligned?
The first step is to slow down. To slow down, to take a deep breath, to start really going in. Begin the journey of getting uncomfortable and asking yourself, what am I curious about? The second something comes into your view, challenge yourself to take that little step. I'm curious to open this book today. I'm curious to listen to this podcast today. Start exploring curiosity. Your purpose will follow. But we have to get more curious about what's going on inside, and we have to get more curious about the world around us. But that all comes from taking a breath and slowing down.
Thanks for being here, my friend.
My brother, what a pleasure.
This was awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you for who you are in the world.